Hey, I'm Ashley. I'm on the mic, and this is the Onya weekly live show where today we are talking all about how to hire your first team member. And whether or not you have hired someone before, you are terrified to hire someone ever, or you're maybe on the line and thinking about it, this episode is for you because we are covering number one, knowing exactly who to hire, number two, the three warning signs that you maybe need a team member. And regardless of if you need a team member or not, if you have these warning signs in your business, you probably need to address them. And then, of course, number three, getting past the mental roadblocks of hiring a team. So, whether you're watching or listening, on your mark, get set, let's listen. Okay. So, first and foremost, we need to know exactly who to hire. And in the online space, especially, there is a lot of shiny object syndrome when it comes down to hiring. The number one thing that we hear in reading books like Traction or just learning from other online entrepreneurs and trying to replicate their business model is hire a VA or hire an integrator. And, depending on where you're at, that may or may not be good advice. The biggest thing that you need to remember when it comes to hiring is that you are hiring proactively to solve a problem that is going to be magnified in your business. That is why you hire. You don't hire because it's the cool thing to do. You don't hire because random people that you listen to, including myself, are telling you that you need to build a team. You don't hire because, I don't know, you hire because there is a problem in your business and you want to solve it. And that is the purpose of finding somebody to come into a role to be able to hire them. So, how do you know who to hire? Well, it's really simple. We overcomplicate it. We have all these names, all these options. But ultimately, when it comes to figuring out who this person is, all you need to do is look at the biggest problem that is out of your zone of genius to solve, out of your wheelhouse, and figure out, okay, how long is this taking and what is the problem and what is the skill set that's required to solve it? It's very, very simple. And so, for most people, why they hire a virtual assistant is usually the issue that exists is that they don't have time to respond to all their emails because they don't have the organizational systems of a large company, or they just really need help in getting back to people because they are backlogged as they figure it out. But here's the secret. That's not always the case for every business owner. Sometimes maybe you're a company that's scaled to a point where you really need somebody that's going to be a lot more client facing or to be able to integrate and connect the dots. Maybe what you actually need as a project manager. Or maybe you don't need a virtual assistant at all. You need a personal assistant, or you need an employee or an administrative assistant that's going to help you locally, right? The key to determine who this person is to create a laundry list of all of the problems and the fires that you are having and experiencing in their business that you would like to eliminate. And so, what you'll do to make this assessment is you're going to list out all of those things instead of just jumping to hiring a VA because it's the cool thing to do. So if you're in that position and you're wondering who to hire, write out a list of number one, the things that you want to be doing in the business. So as the true CEO of your company, what is it that if you could wake up every day and do it that you would be doing? But number two, who are the people that you need to bring in to be able to solve and assess that? So this could be you just really are overwhelmed and you have a million ClickUp notifications or Asana or Trello notifications, and you need someone to really go in and assign those to the people that they need to accomplish that. It's actually more of an integrator and less of a virtual assistant. And so often when I see online entrepreneurs and service providers making these mistakes, it's because they've been told to hire a VA, which is not a bad thing, right? The reason that people hire this VA is that it's a very low risk hire, it's an inexpensive hire, and ultimately it's a contractor that could be eliminated at any given time. But what you really want to do, and the reason why hiring team members gets a bad rap is because people don't know how to, they hire one team member and expect them to do something that they don't have the bandwidth to do because they haven't done this first critical step. And that is really one of the number one reasons where hires maybe won't pan out. The other thing to really consider, again, as you're looking for these roles is not where the business is at, but you really need to step. And this is one of the most challenging things that I work on with my coach on is creating that vision for the business in years from now with what you want to do. right? Because you're not only hiring for problems right now, you're wanting to look into the future and foresee future things. You don't want to create problems that don't exist, but you also really want to look at where you want to be in a company or in the company and who is going to be the right person to come on and support that. So that's how you figure out who to hire. Make a list of all the things that you would like to solve and get really concrete. Like, I would like somebody to be able to sort through my inbox, or I would like for someone to call my clients once a week and check in with them to make sure that they're accounted for. Or I need someone to schedule a minimum of about 10 posts. The content is already created for this post, so they don't need to create content, but they need to schedule them. That's more of a VA. Whereas if you're looking for somebody that's going to actually create the content, it's not a virtual assistant, right? If the problem is that you don't know what to say on social media and you don't know what to create, that's going to be more of a social media manager or a content strategist or a marketing agency like us, not a virtual assistant. If you need somebody to get you leads, well, that's not a virtual assistant necessarily, or really a social media manager at all. That's an advertising agency, and you need to hire us because we offer that type of a service, right? You need to be very, very clear on what those outcomes are and what those issues are, and hire accordingly. Okay. The final factor that you need to consider when it comes to hiring is, do you need a generalist or a specialist to step into a role? A generalist is typically going to be a contractor or an employee that's going to be more of an administrative role, or even a role that they're multifaceted and they're doing a lot of things. That's more of a generalist. So usually, the most profitable way to do this is to bring on a full-time employee or someone that's going to, their scope of work is very, very broad. This is going to be from anything that you've typically got a system for in your business already. Now, if you want to hire a specialist, that's going to be if you want a specific return on your investment or a specific outcome or something very, very niche that a specialist would do. And when it comes to this, again, it could be an employer, it could be a contractor, but usually if it's going to be an employee, this would be a more senior level or a higher ranking position. And if it's going to be a contractor, it's going to be a niche agency or a niche type of consulting firm that's going to be able to help. So that's how you can assess who to hire. The next really important question to ask is, when do you need to bring someone on? And there's 3 warning signs that I want to talk about when you need a team member. The first is very obvious. You're at capacity. If you are at capacity, you have a decision to make in the way that your future of your business looks. You either need to bring on a team member, or you need to decide that this is the cap of the services that I will provide at this price point, and I will move to a waiting list. Now, what concerns me, and why when I mentor other online service providers about this very concept, is that when you cap your services, you're leaving money on the table. And so you can do this for a season, but the question that you really need to determine is, am I content with the amount of clients, the amount of work, and the amount of income that I'm making? And so it's ironic because most people want their cake and they want to eat it too. And so they say, well, I don't want a team member, but I want to make $1 million and I only want to work 10 hours a week and I don't really want to fulfill. If you're an online service-based business, fulfillment is at the core of what you do. You cannot and you will not have a sustainable business. And I'm sorry if this goes against what you've heard, but it's just the hard truth. You have to serve your clients. You're a service-based business. Can't just go off the grid. You can have boundaries, sure, but at the end of the day, you exist to serve. You are providing a service. Can you imagine if your hairstylist just told you they didn't really want to work or they didn't really feel like cutting your hair, right? You're probably not going to go see them. You're going to have to find someone else. You're a service-based business. Your job is to serve your clients. Therefore, you have to decide, and it's okay if you say, you know what? I'm content with my workload. I'm content with my income, and I'm content making providing all of the back end of my services, then that's fine. Then you continue doing that. And you maybe, whether it's temporarily or for the foreseeable future, you get to be content with that. But if you're at capacity and you do want to bring in more income and you don't want to work as much, then you need to hire. You need to hire a team member. And again, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. We'll get to that in the third point, but that's the first sign, is that you're at capacity. The next sign that it's time to hire is that you're doing things, you're in a profitable place and you're doing things you don't want to be doing. So when you've provided a service, you don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel every single time because that's not profitable. It's harder for you to rinse and repeat every time you change the delivery and the fulfillment of a service. And quite frankly, just because you're bored doesn't necessarily mean that that service doesn't deliver results. And so when you are getting sick of the things that you're doing, chances are there's someone else that you could bring on when your business is profitable to come and have them help support you in those things so that you are not doing things you hate and you're pulled into your zone of genius. That's the second warning sign. If you're starting to feel burnout, not from a workload perspective, but doing things you hate and getting stuck doing, maybe again, I am an ads manager by nature, but a strategist at heart and really moving toward that trajectory. One thing that we've discovered internally with our team is that strategy is not only mine, but it's really our team zone of genius. And so that means that we either have to pivot the way that we're offering services. And in our case, we are because it's the best solution to our clients, or before that, the alternative I was considering is we brought on another ads manager to help with those things because they weren't in my zone of genius. Okay. So that's the second warning sign. If you're finding yourself dreading and resentful of some certain tasks, then it may be time to explore hiring someone that they would fall into their zone of genius. And finally, the third warning sign that you need to bring on a team member is maybe that you're stagnant. And this is not always the case. This is a tricky one to assess. But if you're stagnant and you're not seeing the growth and you've kind of gotten into a groove, then you may have inadvertently reached your capacity. And it may be time to explore bringing somebody else on so that whoever is selling, usually most likely you, can go out and have more business. Because sometimes psychologically, if you can't fulfill anymore, then you're probably not going to go out and get more new clients from a sales perspective. And so if you are at capacity, again, it kind of goes back to the number one. But if you are stagnant, it usually is a sign of a capacity issue. And so that can help go back to point number one, to bring on new people. Okay, so the last thing about how to hire your first team member, getting past the mental roadblocks of hiring a team. There are so many, right? The examples ranging from I don't want to manage people to I don't really want a big team to I don't know how to hire. Any upper limit roadblock mental thing, I've heard it. Okay, let's just talk about these myths. Usually, a sign of not wanting to hire isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily from a management standpoint, it's from an upper limit standpoint. Okay. It's from a standpoint. And what I mean by that, I'm referencing the big leap. It's because you have a set expectation of this is what it is like to hire. This has been my experience working for an employer in the past. This is the way that it has to be. And you typically, around hiring, a lot of people have false beliefs on what hiring is and hiring isn't, and what culture and management is and isn't. And is there a management component? Sure. But the secret to remember is that if you hire the right people, management will not be easy, or you could hire and bring in somebody to help manage those people for you. So you need to get past that myth first and foremost to recognize that you have to change your expectations and beliefs. And so when it comes to getting past those roadblocks, you need to ask yourself, what are the beliefs that I have about bringing people on that may or may not be true? So to get past those beliefs, we ask two questions. Is it true or false, right, that hiring people means that I have to manage them? Probably not. It's probably false. You see a lot of owner operators all the time that are not involved. And so you probably more or less have the real issue at hand is essentially that you do not currently have the skills or the bandwidth to bring on someone to manage those people. So then the question number two becomes, is it possible that I could create a system or infrastructure before I can afford to hire someone to bring on this first team member and not have to manage them? Or is it even possible that I could bring on someone and not have a whole lot of management headaches related to those false beliefs? And if the answer is yes, then there you go. Then you get to decide, is the outcome that I want worth the risk and taking this step to hire? Is it worth it to me to hit $300,000 a year, if that's maybe your target, right? Maybe you're stuck at six figures right now and you want to hit 300. Is it worth me bringing on and potentially having to manage one person and create a system to hit that outcome? And I'm willing to bet if you're in this group and if you're listening to this show and you're growth oriented, the answer is probably yes. You've more than likely just convinced yourself with false beliefs. And so what needs to happen is you've got to begin reconditioning those beliefs to really evaluate, what do you want out of your business, and is a team a part of that? So in summary, really, really quickly, number one, you need to know who to hire based on the problems that you have to solve in your business. Problems that are happening or problems that you could see being magnified. That's really how you hire. It's not based on trends or this is everyone else is running advertising. I need to as well. Everyone else has a, I don't know, virtual assistant. I need one too. You need to actually look at problems. Number two, you need to look and determine if you have a capacity issue, if you are not working in your zone of genius, or if you're stagnant. Because usually those little warning signs, and again, they're not just hiring warning signs. If you do, there are other areas in your business that you really need to assess. But those are usually the three things that you'll begin to see. And finally, you need to get past the mental roadblocks of hiring a team. You need to decide once and for all what it is in the short term that you want for your business. And if hiring aligns with that, you need to be able to move forward and take the first step. All right. That is all I have for you today. I hope that this episode was jam-packed and so valuable when it comes to hiring your first team member. But remember, it's not as challenging as you think. We've got so many resources too in our Onya Facebook group, in a lot of our free trainings, and of course in our paid programs if you need help. So just send us a message. But in the meantime, we will see you next week on the weekly live show. On your mark, get set, let's grow.